The rooftop glimmered with golden light as a violinist played under a silk-draped canopy in the center. Ethan Caldwell, the billionaire real estate tycoon, with a reputation built on charm and ruthless expansion, raised a glass of champagne. His salt and pepper hair caught the amber glow of the sunset, and a quiet hush settled over the elite crowd. "To new beginnings," he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, "and to the kind of love that makes us brave enough to start over." The crowd cheered, glasses clinked, and beside him, Vanessa Lowell, gorgeous in her ivory gown, pressed her lips to his cheek. Cameras snapped the moment like it was history being made. After all, she had once been his wife's best friend, and now she was his bride-to-be. On the surface, it was a fairy tale. Second chances, golden vows, and a man who refused to live in the past. But a past not buried can still breathe. Across the street, parked silently in the far corner of Magnolia Circle, a long black limousine idled. Inside, a woman sat in stillness. Her name was Harper Caldwell. She hadn't moved for 20 minutes. Her eyes were fixed on the rooftop. She could see Ethan lift Vanessa's hand for the cameras. She remembered that hand. It used to hold hers in shared grief, back when Vanessa promised her, "I'll never let anything hurt you." In the back seat, 4 toddlers stirred in their sleep. Matching soft coats, matching faces. 2 had curled up against each other. The other 2 lulled by the hum of the engine. Harper reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Thick, expensive, cream-colored. The wedding invitation had arrived anonymously, a gift or a warning. She traced the embossed names with her finger. Ethan Caldwell and Vanessa Lowell. Inside, Ethan had no idea that the past had parked just outside his spotlight. He laughed on cue, he posed with investors and celebrities, he kissed Vanessa again, all of it perfectly timed for the PR team documenting the romance of the year. And yet, under his polished exterior, something stirred. A flicker, a shadow. Harper's voice whispered in his memory. "The truth doesn't stay buried, Ethan, it just waits." A valet walked past the limo and paused to glance in. Harper turned her head slowly. The window lowered an inch. "I'm not here, yet," she said, her tone like marble. "He'll know when I am." Then she rolled the window back up and looked once more toward the rooftop. The gala was just beginning. Vanessa Lowell smiled for the cameras as if she were born to be adored. Her hand clutched Ethan's with practiced ease. Her white dress, a whisper of elegance against the gold-lit skyline. Everything about her screamed perfection, except for the invisible tension knotted beneath her ribs. The night was flawless. She was marrying a millionaire, and yet she couldn't stop thinking about the woman not here, Harper. She and Harper had once shared everything. College nights, heartbreaks, even matching tattoos during a wild summer in Catalina. Vanessa had held Harper's hand through her wedding to Ethan. She had stood behind her in lace and tears when Harper miscarried their first child. She'd promised to stay close to protect her. Now she wore the ring Harper once wore, and the silence between them had stretched 3 years long. "You okay?" Ethan asked, leaning in to brush his lips against her temple. His breath smelled faintly of champagne and ambition. "You're stiff." "I'm just cold," she replied with a smile that felt like glass. Ethan nodded and turned to greet another guest. Vanessa's gaze drifted past him to the glittering bay below. She could almost feel Harper's presence in the wind, a ghost she couldn't name out loud. Earlier that day, Vanessa had received a letter. No sender, just 3 words in familiar handwriting. "You broke me." It sat at the bottom of her clutch now, folded neatly beside her lipstick. She excused herself from the reception and walked into the suite's dressing room, heart hammering inside. She locked the door and pulled out the note again. No signature, no return address. But she knew Harper's handwriting was etched into her memory. It had once penned birthday cards, late-night confessions, the vows Vanessa had helped Harper write for her wedding to Ethan. A sudden knock jolted her. "Vanessa?" Ethan's voice on the other side. She stuffed the letter back into her bag. "Just a minute." She looked in the mirror. Her reflection stared back with perfectly lined lips and eyes that had seen too much. This wasn't regret. It was dread, because if Harper had written, it meant she wasn't done. And Vanessa knew something else. Harper never warned twice. She opened the door, returned to the party, and looped her arm around Ethan's. The cameras resumed. But now her smile didn't reach her eyes either. Across town, the limo still sat in silence. Harper held her phone in her hand. On screen, an unsent message with one simple line: he should see what he left behind. Her thumb hovered over the send button. Not yet. The house was quiet, too quiet, for the argument still echoing in Harper's chest. 3 years earlier, they lived in a modern estate just outside Sonoma. The vineyards curled around their land like promises. Harper had thought they were building a life, a family, something rooted. But that morning, Ethan stood at the edge of the nursery in progress. Arms crossed, voice cold. "I can't do this," he had said. Harper's hands trembled over the tiny onesie she was folding. "What do you mean?" "We planned this," you said. "I said a lot of things," he interrupted. "But I didn't mean this. I didn't mean now." She stared at him like he was speaking another language. He looked back at her like she was a stranger with expectations he couldn't meet. "I just need space," he added. "Space?" Her voice cracked. "I'm 6 months pregnant, Ethan." He rubbed his jaw, refusing to look at her belly. "You'll be fine. You always are." That line shattered her. He left the same day. No slammed doors, no dramatic speeches, just a silent departure. A packed overnight bag and a vague promise to sort things out. What Harper didn't know was that he was already texting someone else. She found out 2 weeks later. A friend sent her a photo. Ethan, at a coastal fundraiser, wine glass in hand, arm around Vanessa. Vanessa, who had stopped calling. Vanessa, who had ghosted her the moment Harper began showing. Vanessa, who now looked at her husband the way Harper used to. The betrayal felt surgical, precise, as if it had been planned. But Harper didn't scream. She didn't chase him. She let the silence grow. She gave birth alone. 4 hours of labor. No name beside hers on the hospital forms. No flowers. No calls. Only the nurse whispering, "Quadruplets. That's rare. You're strong." Harper didn't feel strong. She felt buried. Still, she survived. She raised them, one bottle, one midnight cry at a time. She stitched together a life from pain, memory, and resilience. And as her babies grew, she told them stories. Not of princes and castles, but of truth. Of a man who left and a woman who didn't break. Back in the present, Harper sat in the limo and looked at the invitation again. Her thumb traced Vanessa's name, the one that used to sign her birthday cards. She wasn't here for revenge. She was here for the truth. And to show Ethan what space had grown into. 4 small, breathing truths he could never run from again. The villa buzzed with last-minute preparations. Bouquets were double-checked, the string quartet rehearsed under hanging lights, and the wedding planner circled like a polite tornado. But upstairs, behind a locked door, Vanessa stood alone in her dressing robe, staring at herself in the mirror. She hadn't slept. Her eyes told a story no concealer could hide. Ethan had left the rehearsal dinner early, claimed a call from Tokyo. Investors had pulled him away. But she knew better. He was hiding something again. This time, it wasn't subtle. His hands had trembled slightly when pouring champagne. His laugh had landed half a second late, and she'd caught him staring at a woman through the ballroom window. A woman he never mentioned. She'd worn a black veil, sitting in the back of a parked limo. Vanessa had seen her just long enough to wonder. Now, brushing her hair in silence, she finally opened the envelope she'd been too afraid to read the night before. It was still in her clutch, the one she'd pretended not to notice at the gala. Inside, a single photo. Harper, sitting on a park bench surrounded by 4 toddlers. A message scrawled on the back in delicate script. "Do you still sleep at night?" Vanessa's stomach flipped. Harper had never been the dramatic type. She was surgical with emotion. When she hurt, she did it quietly, precisely. The knock at the door startled her. "Vanessa?" Ethan's voice. "Can I come in?" She hesitated 1 second. She shoved the photo under her vanity drawer, composed herself, and opened the door. He was freshly showered, in silk pajamas, barefoot, but his eyes were dark, tired. He leaned in and kissed her forehead. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm just tired," she replied. A pause. "You sure?" Vanessa's eyes lingered on his. "Are you?" He didn't answer. She stepped aside, letting him in. They lay together in silence, back to back, the space between them colder than it should have been. And outside, parked just beyond the estate gates, Harper watched the lights flicker off. Her children slept in the back seat, curled against each other like puzzle pieces. She whispered, "Tomorrow, they'll see you." And she meant all of them. The morning sun rose slowly over the vineyard estate, bathing the grand mansion in soft amber light. Birds circled above the tiled roof as guests began arriving in designer cars and pastel dresses. A string quartet tuned up beneath an ivy-covered arch. Champagne flowed from a marble fountain like everything was exactly as it should be. Until the limo appeared. It wasn't flashy, not the kind you rent for weddings. Matte black, quiet engine, windows tinted dark. It rolled to a slow stop outside the main gate, just as the first round of guests were being ushered inside. The valet hesitated. The driver rolled down the window and handed him a folded note. Not a guest. Deliver this inside. Inside the limo, Harper waited in silence. The children had started to stir, rubbing their eyes, blinking into the morning. All four were dressed in pale cream and navy, their little shoes freshly polished. She'd braided the girls' hair the night before and straightened the boys' tiny bow ties. Now they blinked up at her, confused by where they were. "Mommy?" whispered the smallest girl, voice raspy with sleep. Harper turned, smoothing her daughter's hair. "We're just waiting a little longer, sweetheart. It's almost time." Her voice didn't waver, but her hands folded in her lap trembled slightly. The valet delivered the note to the wedding planner, who read it impaled. She looked toward the towering double doors where Vanessa stood radiant in her gown, ready to walk the aisle. The planner approached cautiously. "Miss Vanessa," she whispered, "there's something outside. A car. A woman. She says she's not here to ruin anything, just to be seen." Vanessa's heart stuttered. She turned slowly. Ethan, fixing his cufflinks across the room, didn't notice at first, until Vanessa's voice reached him like a blade. "Harper is here." His head snapped up. Time stopped. Back outside, Harper stepped out of the limo. She didn't wear revenge. She wore dignity. A soft navy dress, modest heels, no makeup except a faint gloss on her lips. Behind her, the children followed, still groggy, clutching stuffed animals in each other's hands. They stood together on the stone path just as the chapel bells began to chime. Every head turned. Harper raised her chin and began walking toward the open doors. And inside, Ethan Caldwell's empire began to crack under the weight of 4 small shadows he had spent 3 years trying to forget. The chapel was frozen. Every head turned as Harper stepped across the threshold, hand in hand with the children. The carpet beneath her shoes softened her steps, but the silence she dragged behind her thundered louder than organ pipes. Vanessa stood at the altar, veil lifted, bouquet trembling. Ethan, already pale, didn't move, his jaw clenched, his hands flexed at his sides like he was choosing whether to run or lie. A guest whispered, "Is that?" The children stared wide-eyed at the petals on the floor. One bent down to pick one up and handed it to his sister. Harper met Vanessa's eyes, not with anger, but with something deeper, something older. "Warren." "I didn't come to stop anything," Harper said, her voice even, so everyone could hear her. "I came so they could see him, so he could see them." The boy nearest her squeezed her hand tighter. Vanessa slowly walked down the steps toward the aisle. She passed Ethan without a glance, stopping just inches from Harper. She looked at the children. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 boys, 2 girls, same eyes as Ethan, same crooked left smile. Vanessa turned to Ethan. "Do you know them?" Her voice was sharp, but it broke on the final word. Ethan didn't answer. She repeated it, louder. "Do you know your own children?" The younger girl stepped behind Harper's leg, scared by the shouting. Harper knelt beside her and whispered something calming. The others just stared at Ethan, expressionless, like they didn't understand who he was but could feel what he wasn't. Ethan swallowed. He tried to speak. Nothing came out. The guests stared. Phones hovered. Someone started recording. Vanessa's voice dropped to a whisper. "You told me you weren't ready for children." "She said you lied." Ethan finally spoke. "You don't understand," Vanessa snapped. "Then make me understand." A long silence followed. Harper stood tall again. She looked at Vanessa, then at Ethan. "I didn't ask for money," she said. "I didn't ask for a scene. I asked for a name, their name." She reached into her handbag and pulled out a folded envelope. "This is the paternity petition. The court date is set." She placed it gently on the front pew, turned to the children, and gestured. "Come on. Let's go." They obeyed quietly, obediently, without complaint. And as they left, the air behind them collapsed, a vacuum of dignity no lie could fill. Vanessa looked back one final time at Ethan, and in that moment, her decision was made. The wedding never officially ended. There was no announcement, No orchestra cue, no explanation. The guests simply filtered out, confused and unsettled, their designer shoes clicking across marble like slow applause for a show that had broken the fourth wall. The bride had vanished into the bridal suite. The groom no longer looked like one. Ethan sat alone at the altar bench, tie loosened, collar unbuttoned, sweat forming beneath perfect tailoring. In front of him, the folded petition envelope Harper had left sat unopened, untouched, like poison. Outside, the limo was already gone. Harper had wasted no time. A quick turn of the key, 4 children buckled in again, doors shut, the quiet hum of the engine. No theatrics, no goodbye. A photographer tried to follow. Nora, Harper's old friend and former bridesmaid, stepped in front of them at the gate. "No photos of the kids," she said. "You got your drama. Leave the rest." Nora's presence had gone unnoticed all day. She hadn't been invited, but she knew Harper would come, and she knew why. Vanessa had never asked her to the wedding, because she had once been the glue between the 3 of them. Harper, Vanessa, Ethan. But glue can only hold what isn't cracked. Upstairs, Vanessa stared at her reflection in the gilded mirror, mascara smudged beneath her lashes. Her wedding gown now looked like a costume. She remembered trying it on and whispering, "I feel like someone new." Now she felt like someone fooled. A soft knock at the door. "Vanessa." She didn't speak. "I didn't expect her to show up," he said from the hallway. "I didn't expect any of this." Vanessa stood, hands clutching the edge of the vanity. "You didn't expect the truth." A pause. "You said she was unstable, that she left you." "She did." He lied again. "She left you pregnant, with 4 children." That silence lasted longer. Finally, Ethan spoke. "It wasn't supposed to matter anymore. We were supposed to start clean." Vanessa turned to the door, her voice low, decisive. "There's no clean. Not when you build over rot." She locked the door. Downstairs, Nora stood by the fountain, watching everything burn from the inside. She pulled out her phone and dialed. A voice answered. "She's on her way back," Nora said. "And he's unraveling." "Good," came the voice on the line. Because Harper hadn't just come to be seen. She'd come to finish something that had started long before the toast. The hotel penthouse bar was quiet at noon. No music, just soft sunlight filtering through tall windows and the slow clink of glass being polished behind the counter. Vanessa sat alone at a corner table, no makeup, hair still pinned from the day before. In front of her, a glass of untouched champagne, left over from what should have been a celebration. Harper arrived 10 minutes late, not because she wanted to seem powerful, but because one of the kids had a nosebleed in the car, and she refused to come in stained. She entered with no makeup, no entourage, and no hesitation, just the quiet fire of a woman who'd survived what no one saw. Vanessa stood but didn't smile. Harper didn't expect her to. They sat, a long silence passed. Finally, Vanessa spoke. "You knew he'd never tell me." "I didn't come to tell you," Harper said. "I came so he'd see them, once." Vanessa nodded. "And he didn't." Vanessa looked down at the table. "He told me you cheated on him, said he caught you with someone else, that he'd been shattered, alone." Harper gave a quiet laugh, more breath than voice. "He's always been the victim in his own stories." Another pause. Vanessa hesitated. "Can I ask you something personal?" Harper nodded. "Why didn't you try to ruin him?" "You could have done it years ago." Harper met her eyes. "Because I thought maybe he'd look for them on his own one day." She leaned in, her voice firm but not angry. "He never did." The weight of that truth landed harder than any slap. Vanessa swallowed the ache in her throat. "I thought I stole him from you," she whispered. Harper tilted her head gently. "You didn't. He gave himself away." For a moment, they were just 2 women who had both loved the same man and paid for it in different ways. Vanessa reached into her purse and pulled out her engagement ring. She slid it across the table. "Do me a favor," she said. Harper looked confused. "Give this to your daughter one day so she knows what it's worth and what it isn't." Harper stared at it. "She doesn't need reminders of him." "No," Vanessa said. "She needs reminders of you, of what you walked away from, and what you stood up to." Harper said nothing, but for the first time in a long time, her eyes welled. Vanessa stood, adjusted her coat, and looked back once before leaving. "I'm sorry he made us think we were enemies," she said. Harper watched her disappear into the light beyond the door. Not enemies. Not anymore. Just survivors. The news broke at 7:14 a.m. Not through a press conference, not through a tabloid, but through a viral leak. A grainy security video, time-stamped. Location, Monterey Wellness Center. Date, 4 years ago. The footage was short, under a minute, but it didn't need to be longer. It showed Ethan Caldwell entering a private clinic in a tailored suit and sunglasses. He handed an envelope to the front desk nurse. She opened it, eyes wide, and nodded. Then he turned and left, not once glancing at the hallway behind him, where Harper had just been wheeled into labor. There was no audio, but the silence in the video said everything, and it spread like wildfire. News anchors scrambled, social media accounts exploded. Caldwell reveal trended by noon. Every news outlet ran the same headline: Millionaire bribed clinic to erase records of his own children. Ethan's PR team denied it, called the footage misleading, lacking context, an invasion of privacy. But the damage was done. Vanessa didn't speak to the press. She didn't need to. Her silence became its own kind of statement. Board members at Caldwell Properties called an emergency session. Stocks dipped. Investors pulled out. By midnight, the empire Ethan had spent 15 years building had begun to crack. Meanwhile, Harper sat on the floor of her living room in a modest rental across the city, folding laundry beside 4 toddlers playing with toy dinosaurs. Her hands were raw from scrubbing floors she couldn't afford help to clean, and a dull ache pulsed in her hip, where the old injury from childbirth still flared up when she moved too quickly. Some nights, she lay awake wondering if the cost of telling the truth would be more than she could carry alone. She didn't turn on the TV, but Nora sat on the couch, laptop open, watching the media frenzy build. "You could sue him," Nora said without looking away. "You could own half of what he has by next month." "I don't want what he has," Harper said softly. "I just wanted what he took to come into the light." Nora leaned back. "You're the most terrifying kind of woman. You know that?" Harper smiled faintly. "No, I'm just the kind who remembers everything." Outside, the sun was setting. A soft breeze moved through the open window. One of the children, Owen, brought her a drawing. It was crude, childish, scrawled in crayon but clear. 5 stick figures holding hands, and one had a crown. "Is that me?" she asked, pointing to the crowned one. Owen nodded. "You're the queen." Nora watched from across the room, eyes wet. In a world where men like Ethan built glass towers, some women built kingdoms, with crayon courage and silence. The kind of kingdom no scandal could ever destroy. The black limousine pulled away from the courthouse as quietly as it had arrived. No driver interview, no waving from windows, just the soft hum of tires rolling over rain-dampened pavement. Inside, Harper sat in the back with her children gathered around her, each buckled in, each clutching a stuffed toy handed out by Nora before departure. The twins were asleep again. Owen and Mara stared out opposite windows, calm in a way only children could be when the chaos was adult-sized. There were no tears, no drama, just the soft, weighted silence of a story finished. Harper leaned back, her head resting against the seat, eyes fluttering shut, not from exhaustion, but release. This wasn't victory. This was relief. Outside, flashes went off as paparazzi swarmed for one last shot. A lone reporter knocked on the window, calling her name, holding a mic as though the right question could break her open. She didn't respond. She had said everything without saying a word. Meanwhile, not far away, inside the penthouse office of his flagship hotel, Ethan Caldwell watched it all unfold on a muted screen. His tie was loosened, his eyes sunken. Around him, assistants packed boxes in silence, pretending not to see the man unraveling at the center of a once-perfect empire. On the screen, the limo turned a corner and vanished from sight. Ethan stood, walked to the window, and stared at the city he once owned. In the glass reflection, he looked older, not just defeated but exposed. He reached for a framed photo on the shelf, a picture of him and Vanessa smiling on the yacht where he'd proposed. He stared at it a long time, then turned it face down. Inside the limo, Harper opened her eyes. The sun had broken through the clouds. A sliver of golden light touched her hand where it rested on Owen's knee. The driver, a quiet man who hadn't spoken since he picked them up, caught her gaze in the rearview mirror. "Where to now, ma'am?" he asked. She thought about it. "Not a hotel, not a press conference, not a lawyer's office. Just home," she said softly, "wherever they stop asking questions." The driver nodded. As the limo curved down the coastal highway, the skyline faded behind them. The world that once silenced her now left in the rear view. And in its place, sky, waves, and the four little souls who would never again wonder who they were or who had tried to forget them. Harper looked out the window one last time, not for him, but for the girl she once was. The girl who had been left behind with nothing but the truth. She whispered, barely audible, "We made it." And this time, no one, no man, no lie, no empire could take that away. It arrived on a Tuesday. No return address, just a single name written in block letters on the back, Owen. The envelope was soft, slightly wrinkled, the way paper gets when passed between too many small hands. On the front, Ethan's name was misspelled. The H wobbled like a child's unsure hand. It was dropped off by courier. The concierge tried to hand it to Ethan personally, but he simply took it, nodded, and walked away. Back upstairs, he stood in his office, staring at it for a long time. Then he placed it unopened on the edge of his desk and left it there. Not out of fear, but something worse, avoidance. Down the hallway, Vanessa lingered in the doorway, watching. Her presence, once radiant and camera-ready, now felt muted. Their engagement had dissolved quietly. No announcement, no public statement. Just silence. The same kind she'd once accused Harper of wearing like armor. She approached the desk hours later, when Ethan had retreated to the terrace with a bottle of whiskey and the view of a city that no longer applauded him. Her eyes scanned the envelope. She didn't ask permission. She simply opened it. The top corner torn, the crayon lines messy. There were 4 signatures: Owen, Mara, Caleb, Lily, each name followed by a crooked heart. The message wasn't long. "Dear Mr. Caldwell, Mom says we don't need you, but we drew this so you remember us. We like pizza. Mara can spell butterfly now. Caleb lost a tooth. Lily runs fast. Owen got a gold star. Bye." There was a drawing too, 5 stick figures again, just like the one Owen had given Harper in an earlier chapter of their lives. Only this time, one figure stood outside the group, a sad face, a tiny question mark above his head. For a moment, Harper wondered if she had done enough to fill the empty space he left behind. Some nights, she still woke up thinking she'd hear the door open, hoping she would never have to explain why it stayed closed. Vanessa folded the page slowly. She placed it back in the envelope and walked to the kitchen. Ethan didn't turn around as she passed, but she said it anyway. Quiet, sharp, a cut wrapped in silk. "You were a storm." He raised sunlight. He didn't reply. He wouldn't. Because there are truths too unbearable to speak aloud, and love letters too innocent to be read by the guilty. The envelope remained on the desk for days, collecting dust. Long after Vanessa was gone, long after the world stopped whispering his name, and long after a woman named Harper taught 4 children that remembering where you come from doesn't require being claimed, just being loved. The penthouse balcony that once gleamed under champagne lights now sat in silence. No more guests, no more camera crews, no more toasts, just the hush of stale air and unopened windows. Across the room, the fireplace flickered on a timer, programmed years ago, back when appearances mattered more than warmth. Now it crackled alone. Ethan no longer lived there. He hadn't returned in weeks. Some said he was abroad. Others whispered about rehab, exile, reinvention, but no one really knew. The light in the top-floor window that once blazed every night, broadcasting success, stayed off. And it was better that way. Down the coast, far from the echo of clinking glasses and press headlines, a seaside town bustled with ordinary life. Harper stood in a paint-splattered smock in a sunlit classroom, helping Owen mix blues and yellows into a perfect ocean green. Caleb was across the hall, learning to read. Mara was on a stool, sculpting a bird out of clay. Lily was somewhere outside, already barefoot. They'd stopped asking about him. Children do that sometimes, not out of forgetting, but because they make room for what stays. Harper didn't need answers anymore. She had laughter in the hallway, crayon hearts on the fridge, quiet moments at dusk when all 4 fell asleep without nightmares. That was justice, not a courtroom, not an apology, just peace. She'd never returned to the city, never answered the media calls, never watched Vanessa's exit interview because she didn't need to. She had become the kind of woman people can't erase. The town knew her by name now, Miss Harper, the one who brought her own brushes, the one whose children never cried during storms. One Saturday, as the golden light poured through the windows, Nora arrived with cupcakes. They sat on the back porch as the children ran down the hill toward the ocean, their laughter floating over the wind. "Do they remember?" Nora asked gently. Harper didn't look away from them. They remember enough and forget what they need to. In the distance, Owen turned to wave. His face was lit with joy, not in spite of what came before, but because of what came after. A kind of survival you can't teach, only witness. Nora smiled. The wind picked up, tossing hair and sand and memory into the air. Far off beyond the shoreline, the skyline of the city blinked faintly in the twilight. But it was too far now to matter. Harper stood, brushing flour from her hands. "I think we're finally home," she said. And as the sun dipped into the sea, 4 silhouettes danced against the surf, their shadows long and unbroken. Because in the end, some empires fall quietly, and some women rise louder than ever before, even without saying a word. So the story is over, my wonderful friends. Are you still here at this hour? If you are really here, if you've stayed with Harper and these children all the way to the last line, then maybe something in the story has been touching your heart in a way you can't quite name. And that's okay. Tonight, let's look at all of it together, with a perspective that has no right or wrong, just an honest space for feeling. Because sometimes, healing doesn't look like standing on a stage with a microphone. Sometimes it looks like folding laundry with tired hands, or whispering to yourself, "We made it," even when you're not sure you believe it yet. This story reminds us that strength isn't always loud, that love doesn't always come from the places we expect, and that the truth, however painful, can set us free. Like Harper, maybe you've been told you were too much or not enough, maybe you've been left behind. But as she showed us, remembering where you come from doesn't require being claimed. It only requires being loved. As you go back to your own life tonight, I hope you carry that with you, that your story is still yours to write, no matter who tried to erase it. You don't have to be perfect to be whole. You don't have to be loud to be heard. If this story moved you, even just a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to the channel. Every time you do, it helps us keep telling stories that matter. And as Harper proved, sometimes the quietest voice can still echo the loudest.